Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time. This is Masechet Menachot, and this is our fourth class. And today we are going to be reviewing Daf 24 through Daf 30. Okay, so we are in the middle of discussing the mincha, the grain offering, and how it becomes sanctified. So the top of Daf 24 tells us that if you put two halves of a mincha,
Oh no, Rabbanit, we're losing you. You're buffering.
I think we lost her.
She's still there, but she's not. I don't know.
Oh no. Can you
wait? We hear you. We can hear you, but not see you.
Okay. I'm going to. Okay. And if you, I'll be back in 1 second. But I'm gonna.
All right, we're waiting. We're waiting here.
Hello.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
I can see you.
Can you hear me? See me?
Yes, now.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I connected. Okay. I changed the Wi-Fi. So tell me, is this okay?
It is for now.
Okay, Bezrat Hashem. I'm using my phone as a hotspot, so hopefully it'll be okay.
We can hear you and we can see you. A little blurry, but we can see you.
Okay. So, okay. Again, you put two halves of mincha in the same vessel, but they're not touching. And then somebody who is impure, a tvul yom, touches one of the halves of the mincha. So the question is, does the vessel combine both halves, and now are both halves seen as impure? So that's question number one. Let's say you took another half, another mincha, and you put it in between, again, let's call it right A and B, and you put C in the middle. Okay, so C is connecting A and B. So let's say the person who is impure touched the middle one. So again, does that make the other halves impure? Now, here we say that it does not connect A and B, and therefore that's not seen as a connection. Also, if a person who is impure put their into the airspace of this vessel and didn't touch anything, it does not make anything impure. Which we have seen before of airspace is only in an earthenware vessel, a kli cheres, but not in this metal utensil, and therefore it would be okay. Now, if we're going to talk about the vessel combining two halves, what if you take kemitza off of one half? Is it as if you took it off of the other half as well, or not? Okay, so we say that maybe that works because they're in the same vessel. However, you can't take a kometz from if it's in two separate vessels. But if they're in the same vessel, again, then maybe that would be okay. One vessel inside of another, right? Think of like a small bowl inside of a big bowl. So now, if the edge of the inner bowl is inside the outer bowl, so then that is seen as they're all in the same bowl, and therefore that would be okay. It's as if they're together. But if not, then not necessarily. Okay, back to the case. Let's say again, we have A and B, the two halves in the same bowl, not touching. And then B, right, one of the halves, is connected to another mincha outside of this bowl. Okay, it's in another vessel. So if someone who's tameh touches A, now what happens? Again, A is in the same bowl as B, which is touching C. Okay, so on one hand, they're connected. So the question is, does the vessel combine A and B enough that B can now make C, which is outside, impure? Okay, that is the question. Or what about the other way? I'm just going to give you the punchline is teku at the end. So don't get too nervous about teku, meaning that we don't know the answer till Eliyahu comes. So I know you might be at the edge of your seat, but I'm just warning you that there's no answer. Okay, so now again, what if, remember we said A became impure in the same bowl as B, which is connected to C? What if you go the other way? What if C, which is outside, became impure and it's connected to B, which is inside, and then it's in the same bowl as A, right? So again, here the Gemara says tiku. We're not sure if these connections are strong enough to make the other thing impure. Now, let's say you split the mincha in half before you put it in the kli, in the vessel, and one part becomes impure, and then you put it into the vessel, and then an impure person touches it again. Okay, so now do we say, okay, it's going to become now more impure, or no, right? The Gemara uses the word savea. It's like full, and it's too full of tum'ah. It doesn't become more tameh. And then the Gemara discusses other cases where can already on one level impure, can it go up another level or not? What if it's the same level, and does it make it more impure? Okay, another case became split, right? So you, again, don't ask me why people are doing this, but either it's theoretical or, people just do whatever. You have the mincha, and now it's split in two pieces, and you lost one of them. Okay, so original is A, B is the other half, and it gets lost. So then you bring another half. Okay, that's C. Okay, you bring another half, and then you found B, the one that we lost. Okay, so now you put all three of those halves in a vessel. So now the new one, C, the one that you brought to replace B, doesn't really combine with A and B because it wasn't really part of the original mincha. And therefore, if C becomes be impure. And the Gemara discusses what about A and B. Okay, so the Gemara now says, now the top of Daf 25, we have a new Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah says that if the kometz, again, the handful that we took out, if it becomes impure, and you burn it, meaning you put it on the mizbeach, which you were not supposed to do because it became impure, but if you burnt it, then it is accepted, because if you remember, we discussed the tzitz, right? The tzitz is the headband, the golden headband that the Kohen Gadol wore, and it makes things that become impure accepted in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple. And therefore, you could eat the shirayim, the leftovers, of that korban. But if the kometz went outside of the courtyard, and then you brought it back in and you burnt it, that it is not acceptable. Meaning that tzitz only works for impurity, for tum'ah, but not for what's called yotzeh, if it goes out of the temple courtyard. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Now the Gemara says, right, how do we know that this is the case? Because the verse says that Aaron will bear of the sanctified things, of the kodshim. So the question is, what does it mean that he will bear these sins? So it's not for pigul, again, the wrong intent. It's not if it was left over, and therefore it has to be impurity, right? Because we know that impurity, we've learned previously, that there are cases where you could bring a korban even if it becomes impure or person is impure. If you remember, we learned in Masachet Psachim that if a majority of the Jewish people are impure, you actually could bring the sacrifice with the impurity. So that shows that there are exceptions when talking about impurity. Therefore, we say that the tzitz helps for tum'ah. The Gemara says, well, maybe it should help if you do the service with your left hand, because we know that sometimes, meaning on Yom Kippur, there is a service that has to be done with the left hand. The Gemara says, no, that doesn't work for the tzitz because it calls it a sin. And it's not a sin to use your left hand. It's wrong, but it's not a sin. And maybe it includes if you bring an animal that has a blemish, right, a mum, because we know that certain blemishes are okay with birds. The Gemara says, no, that's not the case. What if, okay, so now the Gemara gives the case that what if the blood becomes the blood of a korban, back to animals for a minute, if the blood became impure and you anyway put it on the mizbeach, if you did it by accident, meaning bishogeg, so then it's valid and it is accepted. But if you did it on purpose, it is invalid. This is only for personal sacrifices. Can everyone still hear me? Yeah? Okay, good. But for communal sacrifices, either way, for communal sacrifices, it works, meaning even if purpose, it would still be okay. And either way, non-Jew does this, it does not work. Okay, so now there's a machloket if the tzitz, again, back to the headband of the Kohen Gadol. So the headband only works for things. It for sure works for things that get burnt on the altar. What about things that are eaten? So that is a machloket. If it works also for things that are eaten, right? So if the meat became impure, became tameh, before you put the blood on the mizbeach, on the altar, so if an impure person eats it, again, a pure person is not allowed to eat impure sacrificial meat. What if the person is also impure? So then they do not get karet, because right, even a pure person can't eat this meat anyway. Another opinion is no. Even if the person is impure, they still will get karet, meaning you are not allowed to eat this meat that became impure. Okay. Now, again, this shows that, again, you can't eat it after Zrika because of the tzitz. Because what's the idea? Even though the meat became impure, the tzitz makes it acceptable. Therefore, it's still seen as sacrificial meat, and therefore, if you're impure, you get karet if you eat it, right? So this is the proof that the tzitz does work for things that are going to be eaten as well. Okay. Next, daf 26. The Mishnah tells us that if the leftovers, right, the shirayim are the leftovers, meaning after you do the kometz, so whatever is left is called shirayim. If the shirayim become impure, so then, or they get burnt up or lost. So Rabbi Eliezer says they are still valid, and Rabbi Yeshua says it is invalid. Here we're talking about the sacrifice in general, meaning how do you need to have the shirayim there in order for the sacrifice itself to be seen as valid. So now the Gemara is going to explain that when we said that it is invalid, only if all of the shirayim became impure. But if a part of it become impure, so that is fine and the sacrifice is still valid. But if it gets burnt or lost, even a small part of it, then the sacrifice is invalid. Now again, here the Gemara says it's because of the tzitz. Again, making a distinction between impurity versus lost or burnt. Because if it's impure, the tzitz makes it okay. But if it's lost or burnt, then it would not be okay. All right, so the Gemara says, no, maybe even if it's partially burnt or lost, it would still be valid. Okay, now we're going to go back to our animal sacrifices, right? If a kazait of the meat or the fat is still left, right, meaning it's still around, you could still put the blood on the mizbeach, even if the rest of it was lost or burnt or became impure. But Okay, now a verse teaches that even if there's fat, which is chelev, even if there's fat left over, you could still do zrika, even if it's a small part of the animal, that would still make the sacrifice valid, right? Anything that has a pleasant smell, a reach nichoach, would make this sacrifice valid. Okay, next Mishnah. If the kemitza, okay, so again, we have the sacrifice, the mincha, you take off the handful, the kemitza. Now, you're supposed to put that into a sanctified sharet. Now, what if you didn't? What if you just took it and put it directly on the fire? So one opinion is it is invalid. That is not the proper way to do a korban mincha. Rabbi Shimon says, no, it is valid. That would be okay. And if you split the kometz into two, that would also still be valid. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain that as long, right, the first opinion is as long as, the second opinion, but as long as the kometz gets burnt on the mizbeach, it doesn't matter if it goes into a vessel before that or not. That's Rabbi Shimon's opinion. But if that's the case, it must be done with your right hand. Or the first opinion was no, it actually must be sanctified in a vessel. But if he wants to take it to the mizbeach in his hand after he put it in the vessel, that would be okay. But according to the first opinion, it must go into a kli sharet first. Then whatever you do with it afterwards, it's okay. Or maybe it can even be done with your left hand. The Gemara says no. If you're doing it by hand, it must be done with the right hand. But if you're putting it into a kli, if you're putting it into a vessel, so then actually you could use your left hand. Now, if you sanctify it without the vessel, it would be invalid. Or again, maybe it is valid. Okay. Let's say you took the kemitza with your right hand and then you put it into your left hand. What should you do? The Gemara says, put it back in your right hand. Now, if you had pigul intent, meaning improper intent, when it was in the left hand, so then it's invalid, but you would not get karet because it was in your left hand when that happened. If it was in his right hand, it becomes invalid, and it even could be pigul and karet. Or another opinion is no, because it went into the left hand, it is invalid, and that is the end of that, right? It needed to go into the vessel. Instead, it went into the left hand, and therefore it is now invalid. If you brought the kemitza and divided it in two, that is two parts are valid, but if you divide it into more than two parts, 3, 4, 5, it is invalid. Or another opinion is that it would still be valid even if it is more than two. Right? There's a machloket. So the machloket is if the kemitza can be less than 2 zaitim, right? Because again, the question is also if you can burn less than a kazait, or maybe there is no minimum, right? The question is there a minimum of what can be burnt on the mizbeach? the shiraim can be eaten once the fire starts burning the kometz, or the other opinion is no, it has to be when the majority of the kometz is burnt. That's when you can eat the shiraim, and this is based on a verse, right? It talks about being burnt. Now, the parallel to this are the innards, the imurim, that are burnt at night. So it says they can be burnt all night. And things that need to be burnt during the day, they right, they need to be burnt during the day, but they can, right, you can start them during the day, but they can continue into the night. What happens if you start burning them right before the sun is about to set? So then that would be okay. This shows that even if it starts burning, you don't need a majority for it to be valid. So the Gemara says, no, for the Mizbeach, for it to be like accepted on the Mizbeach, it just has to start burning. But if we're talking about eating the shiraim, the leftovers, then it needs to have been burnt most of the way. What if you put the kometz on the mizbeach and then you light the fire? Is that okay? The Gemara says teku, right? Usually it's the fire is burning and then you put the kometz on top. What if you put the limbs on the mizbeach and then light the fire? Again, it is teku. The Gemara talks about it being next to the fire. Does it need to be on the wood or next to the wood? What would be acceptable? Okay. Now the next Mishnah talks about what is essential, right? In Hebrew or in the Mishnah, it calls it, right, is it me'akev? Me'akev means, is this an essential part of the service? So the Mishnah says that a small part of the kometz is essential for the mincha, meaning you need to have it all there, right? Meaning even if a small part is missing, it affects the entire sacrifice. The same thing with the flour and the oil, the kometz and the levona, all of them are essential and they all need to be there for the sacrifice to be valid. So, right, the Gemara says that the verse teaches the whole kometz is essential. You can't even have a little bit missing. So too with the oil and the flour. And since we're talking about me'akev, like what is essential, the Gemara is going to tell us that basically anything that is in the Beit HaMikdash in multiples, each one of those is essential. You can't say, oh, there are 12 lechem hapanim, 12 showbreads. Okay, if there's 11, that's also okay, right? The Gemara says, no, we need every single one, right? So the 2 goats of Yom Kippur are essential, the 2 lambs of Shavuot, the 2 loaves of bread, the 2 stacks of the lechem hapanim, meaning the 12 loaves, the 2 cups, the bezichin of livona. All of these things are essential. The 2 types of bread of the Nazir, the 3 parts, components of the para aduma, right, the ezov, right, the wood that's bound together to dip into the para aduma. The 4 types of bread of the Todah, the 4 parts of the lulav, the 4 parts of the mitzorah, All of these things are essential, right? The 7 sprinklings of blood of the para aduma, the 2 sprinklings on Yom Kippur, the 7 that are done inside, the 7 that are done outside. All of these things are essential. Okay, the Gemara explains that this is all based on a verse, and it says that when it uses the word chukah, we saw this before, but when it says the word chukah and yihiyu, right, it should be this way. It must be this way. And therefore, if it's missing a part of it, it is not a valid sacrifice. If you have all 4 species of the lulav, what we call in Hebrew, right, arbat haminim, the 4 species, you actually do not need to tie them together, but you just need to hold them together, but they need to be held together. This is actually a machloket in Masechet Sukkah. If you need what's called eged, right? If you need to bind them together, connect them all, right? That's why the Israeli bus system is called eged bus, because it connects everybody together. So that's the idea of eged. Okay. And then the Gemara says, just like the 4 species, this is why, exactly, Zohar is talking about the Yemenites who buy all of them together. So they're based on this opinion. Another is that the Gemara then says, why is this the case? Just like we need all of Am Yisrael, all the Jews need to be together, need to be united, and that is what makes us so special, that unity. This is also learned from the Azov, from the hyssop in Egypt, right? They needed to tie them together. So too here, right? The mitzvah is to tie the lulav together, but if not, it is also valid, right? It just beautifies the mitzvah. It makes the mitzvah more beautiful, but to tie it, essential. Yom Kippur, again, it also says the word chukah, therefore it is essential. Para aduma, also the sprinkling of the blood has to be lishma and towards the Beit HaMikdash. The inside sprinkling of the blood and that of the Metzorah has to be lishma, but it does not have to be towards the Beit HaMikdash. Okay, now, okay, I'm going to share my screen. We have some pictures coming up. So hold on 1 minute. Let's see. Done. Let me make sure. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Wait, I can't see anybody. Hold on.
Yeah,
The same.
there it is.
Yeah, now we got it.
It always has just a little bit of delay.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is a picture of the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, and as you could see, all the way on the right, where
Rabbanit, we can
Yes.
see that north is at the top.
Yes, that is the way it's supposed. Yes, right. You enter from the east and you go west. So if you see all the way on the right side, that is called the Israelites' courtyard, the Ezrat Yisrael, and then past that line is where the Kohanim are allowed to go. Then we have the area between the altar and the sanctuary. Then we have the Ulam, the antechamber. And then you have the Heichal, the sanctuary. And then you have the Kodesh HaKodashim, right? The Holy of Holies. So, the Gemara talks about a person who is impure, who just needs to bring a sacrifice, a mechusar kapara. If he goes into the courtyard by accident, b'shogeg, so then he brings a korban chatat, right, a sin offering. But if he does it on purpose, so then he gets karet. And a person who is pure, if he goes beyond his boundary, right, each person has a certain boundary. So then that person would get lashes. But if they go into the Kodesh HaKodashim, into the Holy of Holies, they would get death. Or maybe if you go into the Kodesh HaKodashim, but not in front of the ark, then you'd get lashes, but you would get death only if you stood in front of the Aron, in front of the ark. And this is based on a verse which says, El HaKodesh, right, to the sanctified area, right? This is the Heichal, the sanctuary, right? And it also says El Pnei HaKaporet, right, in front of the Aron. It also Beit HaKaporet, right, which teaches that you would get death for going into the Holy of Holies. Or maybe not, right? Maybe we don't need this statement, the last statement, mi beit HaKaporet. Therefore, the fact that it's there says that there's a difference between in front of the ark and just being in the Kodesh HaKodashim. Okay. The Gemara also says that in the second Beit Aaron, but they still would sprinkle the blood in this area, right in front of the ark, but the ark wasn't there. And the Gemara says that it's really about the place. It's not about the, oh, wait 1 second, not yet. Hold on. It's not about the having the Aron, the ark there. It is the place that is sanctified. Okay, Daf 28 tells us that the mitzorah, the sacrifices for the person with tsarat, with leprosy, must be done lishma, right, with the right intention. If not, or another opinion is it would be valid even if it was not lishma and not facing the Beit Hamikdash. Okay, the next Mishnah is going to talk about the menorah. Can you see the menorah? Yes?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, tell me when.
Not yet.
Still not.
Oh, do I have to like re-share? Hold on.
No, you showed it a minute ago.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is. There it is.
Okay. We have to work hard for this this year. I don't know what's going on with my internet, but I apologize. Okay. You see the menorah?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, the Mishnah tells us, since we're talking about things that are essential, so the Mishnah tells us that the 7 branches of the menorah are essential. The 7 cups are also essential. We're going to talk more about all of this in a minute. The 2 paragraphs that are in the mezuzah are essential. Even if 1 letter is missing, it would be invalid. The 4 paragraphs of the tefillin are also essential. You cannot even have one letter missing. The 4 tzitzit are there's a machloket, either it's one mitzvah of tzitzit or it's actually 4 mitzvot. One. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to talk about all of these things. The verse says that the menorah must be made from one solid block of gold, right? It says yihiyu, and therefore that is essential. You cannot connect pieces of gold. However, if you make the menorah out of a different substance, metal, right? So if it's silver or another material, then it could be made out of pieces that are put together. You do need, if it's gold, again, it should be gold, but if you didn't have gold, you will see you could make it out of another material. If it's out of gold, it needs to have all of these attributes. If it's not, then you do not need, if it's not out of gold, you do not need all of these things. Okay. The Gemara tells us that all the vessels made by Moshe are valid for all generations, except for the trumpets, right? The trumpets of Moshe were made out of silver. These were only valid for his generation, and therefore they needed to make new ones for the Beit HaMikdash. Now, as I said, the menorah could be made out of silver. There's a machloket if you can make them out of tin or lead, but everyone agrees that you cannot make it out of wood or glass. Okay, and this is based on the verse and how you understand the verse. You are not allowed to replicate any of the vessels that are in the Beit HaMikdash for your house, but you could make a menorah that have 5, 6, or 8 branches. You just take it out of 7 branches. Okay, the Gemara tells us that the height of the menorah was 18 tfachim, and it consisted of cups, balls, and flowers, right, and straight parts. So you can see here the different parts. Let's see if I make it a little bit bigger, right? So you have these knobs, and you have flowers, and you have the cups. And the Gemara describes exactly how it was configured with, right, literally like 2 tfachim of, right, you have 3 tfachim, and then 1 cup, and then a flower, and then 2 tfachim, and then a ball, and basically you can see the picture of how it was structured, and this shows you the okay. Here are the cups, but I want to show you this. Hold on a minute. Okay. Let me know when you can see the picture. But basically, I'll just keep talking and hopefully you'll see it.
See it.
Okay, great. So, right, the Gemara tells us that there were 22 cups and 11 balls or knobs and 9 flowers, and all of these are essential. And again, you needed to have all of these on the menorah that was made out of gold. Shlomo had made 10 menorahs that all looked like this, and they were made out of super, like, refined, pure gold, And then the Gemara, the Torah says that the menorah was pure. So right, menorah tahorah. So the Gemara wants to understand, what does it mean that it was pure? One opinion is that Moshe had a vision of how to make the menorah from a pure place, meaning God showed him how to make it. Or maybe it means that it was pure in the sense that it could become impure. The shulchan, the table, is also called pure, and that is because it actually could become impure. The Gemara talks about how they would move the shulchan out and show it to the people to show them the great miracle of the lechem hapnim. Okay, so the Gemara says that Gabriel, the angel, showed Moshe how to make the menorah. And right, there are three things that were hard for Moshe to understand till God showed him how to do it. The menorah, Rosh Chodesh, right, what the size of the moon is supposed to look like, and the shratzim, the 8 different creepy, crawly things that give people impurity. Okay. The next are the two. The 2 paragraphs of the mezuzah. You need everything to be there. The Gemara says you even need the point that's on the yud, right? Can you see this picture?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, the yud. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so here you see that sofer, when a scribe writes the letter yud, it has there's a machluket where the point is, but it has this like extra point, and even that little point is important, meaning don't think that because it's a little point it's not important. And the Gemara talks about the need for all the letters to look exactly the way they are supposed to look, and also talks about right, the hey has to look a certain way, the vav has to look a certain way. If you're not sure if it looks proper, you bring a child who can recognize letters but who's not too smart, and you ask them to read the word, and if he reads the word properly, then it would be valid. Then the Gemara has the beautiful story of when Moshe went to Har Sinai. It's good for last week's parsha and next week's parsha. Moshe went to Har Sinai. He sees God putting crowns on all the letters. So if you haven't seen what these crowns look like, so Rashi has a little bit of what the crowns look like. But these Moshe sees God putting these crowns on the letters, and he says, what are you doing? And he says, well, there's going to be a man named Akiva, who's Rabbi Akiva, and he's going to expound every one of these crowns, right? He's going to learn laws because of these crowns. And God shows Moshe Rabbi Akiva teaching, and he's sitting in the back of the classroom, and Moshe doesn't understand one word that's going on, and he starts to get upset till Rabbi Akiva says, Halacha leMoshe miSinai. The reason we have this law is because this is the law that Moshe received on Har Sinai, and that made Moshe happy. Unfortunately, Moshe then asks God, what is the end of Rabbi Akiva's story? And Unfortunately, we know that Rabbi Akiva is tortured and killed, and Moshe basically says, right, this is the Torah and this is the reward, right? Such a great scholar has such a terrible end, and God says, right, this is part of my plan. And I think the idea here is that we don't understand why bad things happen to good people. Again, the Gemara talks about these tagin, these three like crowns on certain letters, right? On the letters shatnez, basically shin, ayin, tet, nun, zayin. They all have these little like chupchiks. The Gemara talks about the reason the hay is structured the way it is because God always leaves a place for us to leave, but He space to back to do tshuva. From here, the Gemara discusses the way a Sefer Torah is written. It talks about how to write a Sefer Torah. If you read it, right nowadays, when a person learns to write a Sefer Torah, they actually copy an existing Sefer Torah, right? And there are rules. This word begins this column, right? The Sefer Torah is in columns, and it's written in a certain way. But in those days, there were no rules, and therefore the Gemara lays out what the rules are, right? You need to have a certain number of columns. Right? Again, a Torah scroll is written on large sheets of parchment that are sewn together. And the Gemara talks about the fact that the end of the Torah must hold on a second. I want to show you. If you see here that little like inverted pyramid in Rashi, so the Gemara says that you end the Sefer Torah, you have to end it at the bottom of a column, but let's say it won't get to the bottom of the column. So then as you write the column, you get smaller and smaller so that you can stretch it out to the bottom. The Gemara then talks about the last 8 psukim, the last 8 verses of the Torah, and how it's a machloket who wrote them. Right, one opinion is Yoshua wrote them because it discusses the death of Moshe. Another opinion is that Moshe actually wrote the last lines, but he was crying while he was writing it, and therefore when you read those last 8 lines, they need to be read all together. You can't split them up. The Gemara then talks about the margins, how much needs to be left on the top, on the bottom, on the sides, between columns, between letters, between words, and then the Gemara discusses what if you make a mistake? What if you forget to write the name of God? So then there's actually a big machloket what you do. One opinion is that you scratch out, right? You wait till the ink dries and you scratch out the letters, and then you either write it inside or you write it above. Sorry, I missed one thing that I just want to go back to. The Gemara talks about the mitzvah that every person has to write a Sefer Torah. And if you write a Sefer Torah, it's as if you received it from God. So the Gemara talks about that, and this is the source, that even if you write one letter or fix one letter in the Torah, it's as if you wrote the entire Torah. So this is the source for what many people do when they dedicate a Sefer Torah. They have people write or fill in a letter, and with that, you have acquired the Torah from Sinai. And I think with that, we're going to end. Again, the machloket at the end of daf 30 is about how you fix a mistake, whether you have to wait till it dries and scrape it off, whether you can like blot out the ink while it's still wet. Do you write the word in the space? Do you write the word above? But that is for a sofer, for anybody who is going to be writing. So I think with that, we are going to end this shiur. If anybody has, I see we have a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, yes, Ilanit, you look freezing.
Okay. Do you remember? Oh, you're going. Well, never mind.
Oh, go ahead.
Go
ahead, Lisette. I'll have a question
Thank
after.
you. I saw your hand like. Do you remember when you began speaking to us and you talked about a bowl inside of a bowl and there was A, B, and C, and if one was connected to the other, this, that, and the other, it became impure? Do you remember that?
Yes.
What are you visualizing as a connection? They are in separate entities. Where are they? How are they connected?
Great. So, according to the law, if something is in the same vessel,
it is connected.
It is connected, exactly. And the Gemara was trying to understand how connected are they? Are they connected enough to transmit impurity? That's the question. Meaning they're seen as a unit, right? So, did you hear me?
I hear you, but it's not making sense because you have a big bowl. They have separate bowls inside, but this bowl is not connected to that one, nor is the little one connected to the other one.
Okay, so that's why the Gemara was talking about if you have a small bowl that's inside a big bowl, if it's below the rim, then it's seen as inside.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
What else?
Yes, I was so excited in using my art scroll version on DAF 27 to see that diagram. And as soon as I saw it, it's like, it's got north at the top. Rabbanit going to be so excited. And then you actually showed it today. That was great. I did also notice when they're discussing the gold, the mineral must be gold. And they get into a lot of discussion, and it made me think when it said, look, if you have one that is not gold, it does not need the flowers, the cups. And then I thought about the Maccabees and the menorah. Remember, there's a story that they made it was an emergency temporary menorah, and they made it out of steel or iron or something. So that would be the connection here of how they would have sensed, though this was written later, but there's a long tradition, and they already knew apparently that it would be okay to use a menorah that was not gold, right? And so that was fantastic. And then I just had a final observation, just a question, as we were getting into the scribal information, and it is so detailed, and I don't recall that being that detail anywhere else. Sometimes these repeat, and then I'm thinking, so I'm just like, why of all of the tractates, I don't expect you to know the answer, maybe you have an idea, why of all the tractates would they have put that instruction so in this? I don't understand the connection.
Wait, because we're going to have an entire sugya. We're about tefillin, mezuzah. This masechet has all of those things in it. And I think the idea was, again, the train of thought was things that are essential. And because we're talking about different parts of a whole, so the Gemara is going on that tangent, and it's going to go even further. We're going to talk about how they make a mezuzah, how they make tefillin, how they make we're going to talk about all of the laws. So we're just getting started.
Okay, can I add to Lynn's then? Lynn, did you ever think about why the crowns were so essential? Why? They're intricate. And if you miss one, like on the yud, it loses its legitimacy. And I got news for you. I'm trying to teach my great-grandchildren Torah, and they're further away from me. One generation is all it took. And I'm having to hold on to them like crazy. It's scary. It's terrifying. That's why the little points are on the yud.
Wow.
Wow.
That
Very
was
nice.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's in
Hang on to your points.
I'm working on it with God's help. It's not easy.
I wanted
Wow.
to just mention that it's interesting that the diagrams that you showed, they show it like in angles, like more like the Chabad.
So it's actually a machloket if the straight or curved. It's actually a machloket. So the art scroll chose the straight version. But there is another version that has it curved. Machon HaMikdash actually has
they have
it curved.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
The Rambam's sketch just impresses everyone so much, and I don't.
Exactly.
It doesn't impress me.
Well, isn't the essential thing that the light, the candles or oil are all even? That's the significant thing. So they have all equality.
Yes, meaning, as we just saw, all the parts are components. The only thing that it doesn't describe was the metal pole, like branches, if the branches were straight, curved. But the bowls, the cups, the flowers, all of that everyone agrees to and are all essential. The only issue is if the branches are straight or curved. And that's something that isn't discussed here in the Gemara, and then that leads to future machlokot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Helen, did you want to say something?
No, it's just really nice to participate live instead of watching the recording. So, yeah. It's
Now
very
you're
nice.
very
What
nice
time
to
is
have
it?
met you. Lechakir.
Very good.
You taught it to me last week.
Helen,
Wow.
now you can watch yourself in the recording.
I'm trying to reach
Bye.
your
Thank
lips, but,
you.
you know,
Thank you,
your
Rabbanit, Tamara.
technology
Thank
was
you,
off
everyone.
today. Yeah, bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
Shavua Tov and a Shabbat Shalom. See you next
Shabbat
week.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you.